Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Embracing Power and Potential. I hope you have all had a fabulous week, and I hope you enjoyed the episode from last week, all about my journey up until now. So, if you haven't, definitely go and check that one out. But today is a bit of a follow up. I wanted to do a bit of a reflection episode. As most of you probably know, I've spent the last few months now living in New Zealand from Australia, traveling around and doing quite a lot by myself. And solo traveling has taught me so much. I actually just had a little mini holiday inside my holiday and went to Queenstown, to the South Island, which was absolutely incredible. It is like another world, and it was the first time that I seen snow, so it was very exciting. And I actually didn't even take my laptop. I just really wanted a week where I could be present and embody the version of myself that I've journaled about for years. So, in saying that, solo travel has taught me so much, and probably not in ways that I'd expected. Obviously, you learn how to navigate new places, make decisions for yourself, and you have to figure shit out when things don't always go to plan. But I think the biggest lessons have actually been about myself. Who I am when I'm taken out of my normal environment. Who I am when nobody around me knows me. What comes up when I'm completely alone, and how much I've learned to trust myself along this process. And also, how much I still value having people to share life with. I think there's this really romanticized idea of solo travel where you go away and you find yourself, become wildly independent, and come home as this completely transformed person. And I will say parts of it are like that, but there are also moments where you're lonely, moments when you're scared, moments when something goes wrong and there's no one else there to figure it out for you. And then the moments when you're experiencing something incredible and think, fuck, I wish someone I loved was here to see this with me. So I wanted to share some of the biggest lessons this experience so far has taught me. And not just about traveling alone, but about identity, self-trust, connection, growth, and actually learning to enjoy the life that you're creating while you're creating it. So, let's get into the episode for today. Welcome, listeners, to Embracing Power and Potential, your go-to podcast where we travel through the realms of personal growth, mindset mastery, and fear-conquering strategies to help achieve your greatest desires. I'm your host, Portia, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this transformative experience. If you're ready to unleash your authentic power and elevate your life, you're in the right place. Join me and our special guests as we embark on conversations that will broaden your horizons and enrich your journey. So, sit back and immerse yourself in these unmatched discussions. It's time to expand your mind and your life. So, I've brainstormed 9 different lessons that I've come up with so far that I've learned, and we're going to kick it off with lesson number 1. Sometimes you have to leave what's familiar to discover who you really are. And this is why leaving your normal environment can be so confronting, because at home we unconsciously fall into familiar roles, routines, relationships, and versions of ourselves that keep us comfortable. And you don't always realize how much your environment is actually influencing you until you leave it. So, for an example, for me, I was working so much in my 9 to 5, like hours, that I sort of put my own projects and my passions to the back burner. and I just fell into autopilot of the same routine every day, and I fell off of what I was truly creating for my life and for myself. So actually being able to step away from that environment, I've noticed so much about myself, and I've actually come back to my true identity of how I want to show up. And it's even the small things of being able to show up more online because I actually have the time and energy to do so. And even connecting back to like my spiritual practices, reading my oracle cards and visualizing and meditating a lot more because there's less noise and less distractions, and I've got a lot more time with myself. But leaving doesn't automatically transform you. It just gives you the space to be able to see yourself differently. And even just the way you're able to show up when nobody knows that old version of you. You know, you can actually show up way more authentically and be in your own energy because there's no expectations around who you're supposed to be or how people know you. So sometimes growth requires physically or emotionally stepping outside of what's familiar so you can flourish and expand your identity into who you truly want to be. And this leads me into point number 2 of different environments introduce you to different versions of yourself. So I believe that different places bring out different parts of you. And there isn't necessarily one fixed version of you that you need to find. But I genuinely believe that some environments make you feel more adventurous, more social, more creative, more independent, or even more calm. Like when I was in Queenstown, I was really in this like social, adventurous energy. And then when I come back to the North Island, I'm fully in like this creative energy because I've been putting so much time into my work, my course that I'm building. And I just think that different environments bring out these different parts of you. So I want you to ask yourself, and this can be if you're feeling maybe stuck, like you feel like you need some progress, or maybe you're feeling really good. I want you to ask yourself, who am I in this environment? And do I like who I am here? Because your environment can either reinforce an old identity or give you room to practice a new one. And something that I've been leaning into lately is something that I keep coming back to is remembering who you truly are and then expanding that version of yourself. And I believe that actually moving out of somewhere that you do feel really familiar and comfortable, and you have society's expectations from the people around you of who you are, when you step out of that, you get to actually discover that yourself. Remember who you are and then expand that version of who you're becoming. So my point number 3 is self-trust is built by figuring shit out. Because you don't build self-trust by constantly telling yourself, I trust myself, I trust myself. Although that definitely does help, you build it by having a problem and then discovering, oh shit, I can handle this. From navigating unfamiliar places, making decisions alone, plans changing, travel plans, rental cars, getting sick, things going wrong. All these little lessons teach you to trust yourself when you are solo traveling. Just before my week in Queenstown, I got violently ill and it was horrendous, and I didn't really have anyone who could look after me. It's in those moments where, you know, you just want someone, I don't know, your mum, anyone to come, and your partner, and I had no one, and I was so sick, and I was navigating it all on my own, and I really just had myself, and I just had to say, well, I guess I'm figuring this shit out. And I was trying to book doctor's appointments and go to the chemist, and all in another country. So it's the little moments, even in the chaos, that you learn to trust yourself, and you can realize that you can actually rely on yourself. And that's something that I've definitely learned along this journey. And it builds your relationship up with yourself as well, which is something that I talk about a lot, is your relationship with yourself is the most important one. So this leads me into point number 4, that every new level brings new fears with it. So you can become more confident and still experience fear. Every new version of you equals new situations, which then equals fears that you've never had to face before. So, for an example, when I first got here and landed my little cafe job, there was already an established group of people that have worked together, and you had to sort of connect and try and make friends. And yeah, new fears came up with that, of belonging and just being able to show up as myself, which is crazy because I've done so much work around self-worth, self-love, and then this still came up for me. And it was fears that I had to work through, but it just proves that growth doesn't eventually lead to a point where you're never scared again. Sometimes fear appearing is evidence that you've entered unfamiliar territory. It's definitely not always evidence that you're making the wrong decision. You're just growing beyond what's familiar and what's comfortable for you. And even fears that have come up for me around visibility and starting to be a lot more vulnerable online. These fears come up because it's things that your old self wouldn't have done. So when you're up leveling and moving into a new identity, a new version of yourself, this is when the fears come up, and it's a good thing. And the goal isn't to eliminate fear. It's becoming someone who can move with it. That's the most powerful part. If you're listening to this podcast and thinking, I know what I need to do, I just can't seem to follow through, well, you're exactly who I created my coaching for. Because the truth is, most people don't need more information. They need support applying it. My coaching is designed to help you break through limiting beliefs, build genuine self-trust, and become the version of yourself who actually follows through on what they say they're gonna do. Together, we'll identify what's keeping you stuck, create a personalized action plan, and work on the mindset shifts that create lasting change, not just temporary motivation. If you're ready to stop waiting for your life to change and start becoming the person who creates it, I'd love to work with you. You can find the link below in the show notes to book a 30-minute connection call, and I'd love to chat with you about whether coaching is the right fit. Now, let's get back to the episode. And now, my point number 5 is sometimes you have to get away from the noise to hear yourself again. So this sort of links back with my point number 1 and 2, but when you get away from other people's expectations, relationships, even social media, your work, routines, the constant input, just getting away from all of that noise and being able to connect with yourself. When you're alone, there's suddenly nowhere near as much noise. There's less distractions. You get to sit with yourself. And at first, that quiet can actually feel a little uncomfortable. You can feel a little lonely and weird because it's not something that you're used to, and your brain is like feeling unfamiliar and it feels uncomfortable. But it gives you the space to notice what you think, what you want, and what you feel. Like truly at your core, and not an influence from other people, the noise. And so the things that I realized when I've had genuine time alone is that I hadn't been putting enough energy into my passions, my coaching, my projects online, because the expectations of society and others, even in work, actually got the better of me. So having to be able to step away and to reduce the noise and to actually connect back with myself and remember who I am at my core, I can now expand that version of myself. And there's a difference between intuition and constantly reacting to everyone around you. Things that you feel like you should be doing, and then that quiet little voice, your intuition, those little nudges, they're the ones that you're supposed to follow. So I want you to sit with yourself for a moment, and I want you to ask yourself, If nobody else's opinion mattered, what would you actually want? And then my point number 6 is become someone that you genuinely love spending time with. This is definitely one of my favorite lessons so far. Solo traveling means spending a lot of time with yourself, learning to take yourself out for coffee, out for solo dinner dates, which I actually did for the first time ever in Queenstown. When I went away for that week, I literally booked reservations for one at really nice restaurants. And it was actually such a nice experience. I got to order whatever I want. I was able to sit there for as long as I wanted and just take in the views, taking myself out on walks and just strolling to wherever, and adventures. I went on a 5 or 6 hour day trip and just drove around and just looked at all scenic views, and it was incredible. So I think people need to stop treating their own company like a consolation prize when no one else is available. And this has definitely taught me that I don't actually have to wait for anyone to live my life. Like, this is something I will genuinely take back home with me. And I'm going to take myself out when I'm feeling like going out for a nice dinner. There was a common theme of, always waiting for friends and scheduling, just never matching up. But now I'm like, why wait? We have one life. If I want to go out on a nice dinner, if my friends can join me, amazing. If they can't, I'm going to do it anyway. But loving your own company doesn't mean never needing anybody, but it's just learning to be comfortable within your own skin, to live your life and not have to wait for anyone. And like I said before, the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important one you will ever have. This leads me perfectly into my next point, that independence doesn't replace connection. Being hyper independent isn't necessarily the goal. You can be capable of doing everything alone and still deeply desire connection. So there were moments when I was traveling where amazing things happened. I saw the most incredible views. And I did wish someone that I loved was there beside me to actually experience it too. But those little moments of, I guess, loneliness doesn't mean that solo travel's a mistake. But at the end of the day, we're human. And it's facts that humans need other humans. Like, connection is a primal human need. So something that I've realized is I don't need someone in order to live my life, but that doesn't mean that I don't want people to share my life with. So I think that's a beautiful, bittersweet moment that I've definitely had along this journey. And then my point number 8 is that some people are meant to find you along the way. There has been random people that I've met because I just chose to go somewhere alone. For an example, the first night I took myself out on a solo dinner, I was just sitting there and someone's walked up to me and he's like, "Are you sitting alone?" And I was like, "Yeah." He came and sat down, totally fine. And we just started chatting, and it was just such a nice experience. And it turns out he was actually an actor and he was having troubles being visible online. So I was able to, I guess, give him some advice from the work that I do. And it's just crazy the conversations that can come up with random people that you would have never met if I didn't decide to travel across the world and have dinner on my own somewhere. And I truly have met the coolest people since I've been here. I've joined an amazing community of girls. I'm actually going to a girls' night tonight with a bunch of people that I've met here that are all building their own online businesses and doing cool shit. And now I'm about to head off to a girls' night. It's these little connections, these conversations that you would have never had if you'd stayed inside your existing bubble. And especially the week in Queenstown, because I was being really present, I was just chatting with so many different people, and I end up connecting with so many of them through social media. And now we all just get to go off and live our lives and follow each other's journeys. And I just think it's so cool. And, some people might stay. Some are there for one night, one conversation, one chapter. And not every meaningful connection needs to become something permanent is something that I'm learning. Sometimes someone enters your life at exactly the point where you're ready for that experience. So, what I'm learning is you have to let people add something to this chapter of your life without immediately needing to know what role they're playing or the whole story, and just having these little moments. And then the last point, my number 9, is don't get so focused on building your future that you forget to enjoy your life now. And this is bigger than solo travel because I'm ambitious, I'm building something, and there's always another goal, another version, another milestone to reach. And sometimes you can accidentally turn personal development into constantly trying to become someone else. I'm talking from experience, that's for sure. Because there will always be another level, another version of yourself that you can reach. But if happiness is always attached to when I get there, then you never actually arrive. Some of the moments that you're living now are things that a past version of you desperately wanted. I know that's definitely true for me. So, travel, solo travel, especially that week in Queenstown, like really consciously being present, it's forced me to actually be where my feet are. It's to take the photo, to just sit on a lake and just watch the sunset, to go for the drive, talk to a stranger, and just have the fucking dessert. Because your future matters, but your life is happening right now. And we need to remember, I think all of us, to just actually be present and appreciate the chapter of your life where you are right now. So I left familiarity to meet new versions of myself. I figured shit out and I've built trust in myself. I've experienced loneliness and connection. I've realized that I can create an incredible life independently while still wanting other people to share it with. And ultimately, maybe solo traveling isn't really about finding yourself. It's about putting yourself in situations where you get to discover who you are when no one else is telling you who to be. So, I think if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's that you don't necessarily have to travel across the world to discover another version of yourself. But you probably do have to be willing to step outside of what's familiar, put yourself in environments you've never been in, do something without waiting for someone to come with you. Spend enough time alone to actually hear your own thoughts. Let yourself meet new people. Let things go wrong. Figure shit out. And let yourself be a beginner again. Because every time you do, you're collecting more evidence that you can trust yourself. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest gifts of this entire experience for me. I've realized that I can create a life that I genuinely love living by myself, while also recognizing that I don't want to do life completely alone. I can be independent and still desire deep connection. I can be focused on the person that I'm becoming while still stopping to appreciate the person that I am and the life that I'm living right now. And maybe that's what finding yourself actually looks like. Not finally arriving at this one perfect version of you and saying, oh, there she is, but continuously putting yourself in situations that allow you to meet more of who you are. Because there are probably versions of you that you haven't even met yet. And sometimes you just have to leave what's familiar long enough to meet them. So, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you loved it, remember to share it to your Instagram stories, send it to friends, your besties, someone that you think needs to hear this right now. And as always, if you love the show, remember to follow, leave a review. It just helps to grow this community and to get more reach. And remember that each month I'm actually pulling out a hat of all the people who send me a screenshot in Instagram DMs of who left a review, and your names get pulled out of a hat and you actually get $50 just as a thank you from me, just for tuning in and showing your support. So, love you so much, and connect with me in the DMs as well as you listen, because I love to speak to you guys and hear what you're loving about it. And I'm always open to like feedback and suggestions of what you want to hear. Thank you to the guys who already do. Use are all gems. And yeah, I just love watching this little community grow. So, love you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.